What is up? Welcome to Recruiting is No Joke. I am your host, Joel Lalgee, the realist recruiter. We are back to regularly scheduled programming. Any of you guys who have checked out the last two episodes of the podcast, you will have seen several of my live event podcasts. I had the pleasure, as many of you guys know, to attend RecFest USA. That was in Nashville, Tennessee, and it was amazing. It's just great to meet people who listen to this podcast, people that follow me on social media, people I've been connected with for years. And I had the opportunity to host a stage, which was really, really cool, as well as do some live podcasting. And so I took those live podcasts, put them in the last two episodes of the show. So if you haven't checked those out, go check them out. What I will say is to any of you guys that are struggling on the job search, go out there and network. Like networking is really, really valuable. And I found this like within my own space, recruiting in HR, when I go to these real life in-person events, it's just great. You don't know whether you're going to land job opportunities, business opportunities, branding opportunities. There's just so many different relationships that you can foster. So it's not just offline though. If you're like, yeah, I don't want to go out. There's so many online networking events. I'm a part of several online networking events that are a ton of fun. And so I highly recommend any of you, if you're stuck in your job search, you're just looking for other ways to start conversations, put yourself out there. So I'm giving you this challenge. So I highly recommend going out there, putting yourself out there and meeting people. But thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Recruiting is No Joke. We'll be right back to this episode. But first, I wanted to thank this week's sponsors of the podcast, Source Whale. Source Whale is revolutionizing personalized outreach. It's not just user-friendly, it's a powerhouse with custom variables, automated follow-ups, and multi-channel capabilities, including phone, LinkedIn, email, and much more. Here's what makes it stand out. Users have seen an average increase of 56% in qualified response rates. With Source Whale, you're equipped with AI-powered tools like Content Coach and Whale GPT. This ensures that your messages rise above the rest, especially with Google's latest delivery updates. These tools have been trained on over 21 million pieces of top-performing outreach content, fine-tuning your strategy to secure better engagement, more meetings, and of course, higher revenue. Source Whale integrates seamlessly with your CRM and ATS. It automates the mundane, organizes your outreach, and even cues you on who to contact next, freeing you up to focus on what you do best, recruiting. Ready to revolutionize your outreach? Visit sourcewhale.com/realistrecruiter and see why thousands of top recruiters are making the switch today. So much has happened. I feel like a ton has happened over the past few weeks, and I haven't been reporting on it. I have, if you follow my TikTok or you follow my LinkedIn now, because I've been putting a lot of those videos on LinkedIn. I wanted to actually start with a story that I saw kind of unfold on LinkedIn. And so a lot of times I get stuff around my content not being uplifting and exciting. Well, this is an uplifting story. But the only reason my content hasn't been so uplifting and has been a little bit of a downer is because the market sucks, man. And I talk to job seekers all the time that are struggling to make stuff happen on a job search. So I want to show you, and I'm going to share my screen here as always. Backstory here. There's a lot we could talk about. The headline here, for anyone who isn't watching this, says, "Desperate for a job, one woman's LinkedIn banner goes viral." And if you didn't see this, it's basically a picture of Courtney Summer Myers, who you can find on LinkedIn. She changed her profile picture. Instead of having the green banner that said "open to work," it just literally said #desperate. And it was pink instead of green. But what I think is amazing about this is the whole discussion about the green banner. You have the one side of people who are like, use a green banner, it will help you. And then you have the other side, which always happens to be like elitist people. They're like, yeah, it makes you look desperate. So she took that and created her own that said just desperate on the profile picture. And interestingly enough, after that, I saw a ton of people kind of change their profile picture to that. But what happened for her is she ended up going viral. And it said on here, if I can find it, it said that she grew her LinkedIn connections by over 15,000, which obviously that's going to open up some opportunities, right? 15,000 is a lot. I mean, the most I've ever received in one day is 3,000, and I've gone viral a lot. But to get 15,000 in from one post, it's incredible. It just changes your visibility. When asked if she would take the same approach again, she responded, "Absolutely. My job hunt has been stagnant for 10 months. This is the only thing that's gained any traction, which is absolutely ridiculous. Anyone have to go on viral to access opportunities," which is a good point. I think the point here is sometimes you got to get creative. Now, I'm not saying that you need to create like something viral to get all of this attention. It's not the case. You could do this one on one. So if you want to connect with people, just get creative about it. I just always think about like salespeople. Like you want a sales job, you want to market for sales, call a VP of sales, cold call them and show them, hey, I know how to cold call. In fact, I can cold call for you. If you're in marketing, put together like a portfolio of some of the work that you've done. Do something creative. If you're a video editor, show some of your video. And either way, I think it's an amazing story. It's a feel-good story. This was just really smart because it's like she's literally playing on the fact that some people say the open to work banner is desperate, and she just made her own thing. And it's funny, since then, I've just seen so many iterations on this. I think she did an amazing job. And I think what we can learn about this is sometimes just getting creative on the job search, especially if you're just in a point where things aren't going anywhere and you feel like you're lost, you feel like you're not getting any traction. Just standing out and doing something creative can really, really help. So yeah, I thought that was amazing. And looking at the job market, I mean, I've been talking about this forever. One of the things that we've seen recently is the revision of these job numbers. But I saw this article. And this was from Yahoo. It basically says Americans are finding it harder to find a job. Americans say it's harder to find a job. So why aren't economists worrying it? And basically, the reason that economists aren't worried is because they are saying that back in 2022, 2021, we had the Great Resignation. That was like a super hot job market. And right now, we're basically just in a good market. So what they're saying is that people, they're not actually experiencing a hard job market. They're just experiencing a good job market. So it went from amazing to good. And that's what we're feeling. Here's honestly, when I see articles like this, and this was posted on Yahoo, to me, it's just ignoring like what people are actually experiencing. And sometimes you have to pull your head out of the spreadsheets, and you literally have to just take a look at what people are going through. And I talk about this all the time. I also made a video on my TikTok, not about this article. I think I actually did make one about this article, but another situation that happened to me at RecFest. Now, like I said, I was at this RecFest thing, and it's a bunch of recruiters that get together. And I think one of the things that was just a little bit kind of disheartening was I was at an after event. Shout out to Job Pixel, which is a really cool video platform. But I was hosting an event with them, and there's a couple of recruiters sat down. I started having a chat, and they were super cool. And I was like, "So, what's going on with you guys? What are you excited about?" And one of the recruiters who had been at Activision Blizzard, which is like the gaming company, they were like, "Yeah, I actually got laid off this week with like 4 of the coworkers." And it's just like those are the moments, and it happened several times throughout that conference. Obviously, there's a lot of recruiting people, and it's like, hey, what's going on? What are you seeing in the market? I spoke to probably about 10 recruiters that have just been laid off. And so when I think about why this matters to you, because you're like, I don't care about recruiters. When recruiters are struggling to find jobs, it means that companies aren't doing a lot of hiring. And during the Great Resignation, where companies were really struggling to hire people and retain people, there was actually a time where recruiters, like really good technical recruiters, were in more demand than software engineers. And I don't ever remember that being the case. It's always like technical talent is the ones who are most in demand. But at that moment in time, it was recruiters. That was like 3 years ago. And so to see where we are now, where we're continuing to see layoffs, that was eye-opening. But then I see articles like this where it's talking about, yeah, it's super strong labor market. And I mean, the one thing I will say is these interest rates going down, which has happened over the past couple of weeks. That is a good thing. I think interest rates going down, it is going to increase hiring. And I do think that is a great thing. But to say that this is like a good job market, if you're looking for corporate roles, HR, finance, even tech, sales. It's a tough market. And so I think sometimes economists, you need to actually go out there, you need to talk to people, you need to have conversations, you need to engage in social media, and you'll see there's plenty of people who are tracking how hard the job market is. But apparently economists are not worried. So obviously past 2 weeks, I haven't put out a podcast. But the big news for me, it's not surprising to me that this happened. I think we could all see it going. But in this article, it says, I was an early Amazon executive. Andy Jassy is right to get employees in the office 5 days a week. So Amazon obviously has gotten people, or they're saying they're going to get people back in the office in 2025. And this is what happens now. More and more companies are going to follow suit. Now, I do think there's going to be companies that stay fully remote, and those are going to be companies that are built with a remote first work culture. I know several of those. I know the HR leaders of those companies, and they're amazing people, and they get it. They want flexibility. And for them, this is an amazing opportunity because they're going to be able to potentially pull people from companies that are forcing people back to the office 5 days a week. And I think like what is most interesting to me about this, and I'm going to do a LinkedIn poll about this probably sometime next week just to get a pulse on this. But, the crazy thing to me is people just don't want this. Anytime I've done a survey on LinkedIn, it's usually like 60% of people, and I get 3,000, 4,000 responses, and it'll be like 60% of people want to work fully remote, 45% of people want to work, hybrid. And like, it's usually like 2 or 3% of people that want to go in the office 5 days a week. It's a really small population. So when I see this, literally what I see is companies just ignoring like what people like actually want. I don't get the thinking behind that. It's like literally not listening to people that are working for you. It's not listening to what people want. So along with that, I'm going to play this TikTok video really briefly that I put out on this topic. And right as they announced that, lots of people had lots of thoughts on this from Amazon. But one of the things that came out right around that same time was the office or quit. Well, according to a recent survey of over 2,000 Amazon employees, after the forced return to office mandate, 5 days a week, that's going to take place in 2025, 73% of these employees said that they would consider quitting. But here's the truth. Saying that you're going to quit and quitting are two completely different things. The timing of this return to office is really smart by companies for a number of reasons. Number one, if they were planning to do layoffs, now they don't have to. Some people will quit, but not everybody. So would you rather quit and be on one of the toughest job markets that we've seen in a decade, or go to the office 5 days a week? This is why a lot of companies are making the timing of the return to office in 2025, because they know a lot of employees will just be too scared to enter the job market and quit. What I think will happen is a lot of these employees will start to look for jobs now and hope to land one before 2025. This only makes the job search harder for those who are on the market, but it is an opportunity for some of these smaller companies that offer remote work to grab some of this big tech talent. They might not be able to pay as much as Amazon, but offering fully remote can be a huge perk for the employees that really value the flexibility. So let me know, would you quit? All right, so we get the point. So yeah, I mean, basically what I'm anticipating is more and more companies are doing this because of what the job market it looks like. The other kind of commentary that I hear a lot about when it comes to the return to office is, and I've talked about this a lot too, is this whole like quiet firing thing. Like, that when you get people to return to the office, there's going to be a bunch of people that can't do it. Like maybe they move their family, maybe moving, it's a lot of work, right? You got to sell your house, you got to put it on the market, and you got to buy another house. And not everybody's going to be willing to do that for your job. Maybe you have a spouse that also has to be back in the office locally, and you thought you had this fully remote job forever, and that's what you were told when you got hired. So you end up quitting. So I think for some of these companies, it is kind of like quiet layoffs in there as well. But you can also see that, when they surveyed people, it's like 70% of people said that they were considering leaving. Now, truth is, a lot of those people aren't going to do that, but some of them will. So I'd be curious to hear from you guys. Let me know. And you can go to www.therealistrecruiter.com/podcast for this podcast page. You can sign up for the newsletter. I would love to hear from you. Email me. You can DM me on LinkedIn. Let me know what you think about this whole situation. So pretty crazy. And again, I would love to know what you think. And look, guys, I'm not even like pro fully remote. Like I'm pro flexibility. And so I think companies that aren't listening to people and who aren't providing any flexibility, it's crazy. I think the return to office, it's going to backfire, especially when we start to see more and more companies hiring again, which who knows when that's going to happen. Probably sometime in 2025, we'll begin to see companies starting to hire. And again, I think it's a massive opportunities for these like companies that are smaller, that are fully remote. I think they're going to pick up some really, really good talent, and they're going to be able to compete with companies like Amazon. Another interesting article that came out this week that I want to play. I'm going to play a video actually from LinkedIn because LinkedIn's like blowing up with video, and I want to see some of these comments too here. So let me pull this back, and I will play. So before I play this, I said Gen Z are hard to work with, and they don't work well. Boomers everywhere. I also did text on LinkedIn because on LinkedIn, it's not just a video feed, you have text. And my text said, Gen Z is hard to work with, boomers. Millennials are hard to work with, boomers 10 years ago. Boomers can't adapt to technology. Millennials, why can't everyone get along? Gen X. I feel like no one ever has to go with Gen X, but anyway, that's a whole different conversation. But look, guys, we have 4 generations in the workplace. Let's stop judging and start working together to understand our differences and discover the value that we bring. So let me play this video. Gen Z workers are extremely hard to work with. Did you guys see this article in Fortune where apparently they surveyed 1,000 leaders and 6 out of 10 of them admitted that they had let go of a new grad or Gen Z employee within months of them starting? They say that some of the big problems are Gen Z being unprofessional and unprepared. Things like showing up late for the day, showing up late to meetings, not reviewing presentations before they go into meetings, so not being prepared for the meeting to actually start, using emojis in communication on Slack, and not wearing professional clothing and really standing out when they're in these meetings. But look, guys, these companies need to point a finger at themselves. At the end of the day, if you are hiring this many new grads and letting them go, you have a problem in your hiring process. You're not setting expectations of what professional is. And you can't expect people who just graduated college to fit in right away. You actually need to coach them up. Attitude seems to just repeat itself over and over. I experienced it as a millennial, and now Gen Z are experiencing it too. At the end of the day, it's just going to continue. And when Generation Alpha enters the workforce, we can expect to hear the exact same things. But really, this is a management issue and a hiring issue, not really an issue with Gen Z. What do you think? All right. I love how I say, what do you think? But let's just see what some people say. So first of all, look at this. Almost 2 million impressions on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn video is popping. But Eric Heedman said, if I had to choose between Gen Z and the entitled, ignorant, and many times office boomers I had to deal with in the last decade, no contest. Someone else said, love this perspective. Each generation has own unique strengths and insights to offer. Instead of judging, let's focus on collaboration and mutual understanding. Yep. There'll always be differences, but we have to work together to bridge the gap. Bit general comment, but relevant. Hire a baby boomer as a coach. Let's see. It says certainly a shared experience, but get a grip, everyone. College grads of 2024-year-old grown adults hiring up and coaching better should not be used as an excuse for being unprofessional. If you come into events like a presentation unprepared, college degrees, experiences, it's values, priorities, and personal. So it's funny, like you see the different perspective, not wearing professional clothing, standing out, like what is standing out to them? Being modest and comfortable is my goal. In a professional setting, I get it. Impressions, everything. Once an interview has been successful, can formality be dropped a little bit? Fair enough. Gen X here. I didn't have a problem with being professional in my first job coming out of college. I was 24 years old. The reason it was because I was taught at home. My grandmother and aunt didn't leave it to the employer to teach me how to be professional. They also taught to me not to be entitled. It goes both ways. Ooh, we got Gen X getting spicy. 128 comments on that. LinkedIn's definitely pushing the video. When I made this video, like the point is, like even that saying like, oh, it's up to the parents to teach people how to be professional. Sure, that makes sense. But like, it's also sometimes with these articles, I'm like, man, people have been saying the same thing. Now, look, if you're showing up unprepared and you don't know what's expected in meetings, if that continually happens, fine. But like if it happens once, okay, prep them like, hey, you've got to, you should be prepared. The not showing up for time, I have heard that one a lot, but also got to think like the past 4 years, I think with the pandemic, like, I mean, I've been on lots of meetings where people have showed up late, where CEOs have showed up late. I guess if it's a company meeting, it's a little bit different, but I think if like, especially with like these Zoom meetings, it is really, really easy to get just, kind of caught off guard and that kind of thing. But I still go back to like, I think what would be smart for companies is, and this happened in my internship, the company I worked for, shout out Direct Supply in Milwaukee, what they would do is they would like partner you up with someone who was older, like a mentor, and then they would kind of guide you through like what's expected, how to act, how to build relationships. And that was really, really helpful, And so I think like, yes, there are certain things where like showing up unprepared and, maybe like wearing the wrong thing and that. But then I think what's more interesting to me is when people just say professional. I'm like, what does professional mean anyway? And you have to define that, because I know some people that I even worked in an environment like this. I'm not going to name the company, but it was a banking environment. They told me that my pants were too tight. They didn't like any of my tattoos showing. And then the next company I worked at, shout out Titus Talent, they didn't care. I got like my whole sleeve done while I worked there. I had grew out my hair long. If I went to like formal events, like I would dress up a little bit more, but it was definitely a lot more of like a casual vibe. So I think you got to define what professional is, because again, like it's so subjective. Like there is no. Well, I wonder what let's see what the definition of professional is, because I do see people throw that out, but let's see if there's a clear definition. So it says relating to or belonging to a profession. Well, that doesn't really give that much insight. Engaged in a specific activity to one's made paid occupation. Okay. A person engaged or qualified in a profession, a person engaged in a specified activity. So it's kind of the same thing, but it doesn't say like what that is, right? But then it does have a lot of pictures of people with like suits and ties. So yeah, my point is like things have changed, and I think when you're onboarding people, when you're hiring them, when you're bringing them into your company, maybe to you there's like these common sense things, or maybe these things seem obvious, but you don't know people's backgrounds. And especially over the last couple of years with the pandemic, everything going remote, there can be even these social things that maybe people aren't getting. Or like I do think, again, in like the remote world, you could show up to class 10 minutes late if it was online, and I don't know if anyone would care. Whereas, if you had that in-person experience, you didn't want to show up late because everyone would see you, right? So I would love to know what you guys think. As always, get a hold of me on LinkedIn. You can also go to www.therealistrecruiter.com, and you can sign up for my newsletter, and you can DM me directly. We got about 5,000 subscribers on that newsletter. But I appreciate all of you guys. It's great to be back like this. Thinking about revamping some of the show and having some different segments as well. So stay excited about that. I'm going to probably have bring back like regular guests that can share their insights. Not for the whole show, but definitely for a segment on the show. So excited for that. Thank you to everybody that's listening. And if you want to be on the podcast, if you're a talent leader, if you're a recruiter, if you're somebody who is involved in helping people find jobs, would love to get you guys on the podcast as well. So please, again, go to www.therealistrecruiter.com. Look me up, subscribe for the newsletter. You can also contact me there as well. If you need recruiting help, you need branding help, you can let me know. But I appreciate you guys. Have a great rest of the week, and we will talk to you next week. That's it from Recruiting is No Joke, The Realist Recruiter. It's been a real time. We'll talk to you next week.